Hi again, it's me with another showcase video, or live showcase video. It's another track from my album Hope and Despair, which is gonna be complete in, well, pretty soon actually. Probably right after this is done. For this last piece, I guess, or one of the last pieces, I decided on making a core quartet. I already have a melody drafted, and I guess this partition of the video is going to be a bit more interesting, but I'm gonna talk about this in a bit. First of all, let's show the instruments. So I have sopranos and altos fired up, which are both Freya. Those are contact libraries that are really awesome. There you go, those are the sopranos. Let me show you the altos. But they don't go as far up as the sopranos. There you go. Both are A legato samples. There are some more like M's. Overall altos where you can like input your phrases, although it's not as really fleshed out as the word builder by East West, which is used in symphonic cores and Hollywood cores. But there, actually, let me just show you. Alright, here you go. So you can see there are syllables like lu, dak, si, mo, lia, ri, she, rum. Just load them up in order. Oh. Let's get rid of that. It's pretty quiet. You can do transitions as well. Actually, do it like this. There. I held the button and it's transitioned right from re to she. Can also do a crossfade. So it's not as sudden. So it's pretty interesting. But I'm going to stick with the allegatos. Oh, actually, I think there were some slow legatos. There we go. I want to show off those as well. Those are really cool. Let me go to altos. It's a bit delayed, but it has a nicer fade over, in my opinion. But yeah, we're gonna use the legato since it's, well, it doesn't have the delay. We'll still have a nice transition. And for the tenor and bass voices, I used go to the player, there you go, the Hollywood Chorus by East West. Actually had a bit of attack. But yeah, I'm gonna handle fine tuning later on probably. Okay, and then the bass. Same. I adjusted the Q range actually. I think it could go even lower. Yeah, it could go even lower. But E So this E is the usual range of a bass singer. H to A for typical tenor singer. For alto voices, E to E. And for sopranos, C to C. But of course there are like extra like better singers or more advanced singers that can go even deeper or lower than that range, especially if you're an octavist, which I've talked about in my composing Russian songs tutorial video or essay, which can go pretty low. Or I guess soprano singers that can go above high C. Okay, okay. Like I said, I have the melody already drafted out, so let's listen to it. Just gonna open it in piano roll. There you go, that's the melody. First off, let's talk about the form. As you can see, these two parts are actually exactly the same. And it's followed by a different part that's a bit longer. So what this form is called is bar form. Bar form means that it's in an AAB form. This and this being A, and this being the B part. So this was actually inspired by all the chorals that we play in my brass corps. Most of them, at least those that we usually play, are in bar form, meaning that there's like a part that just gets looped again or repeated, and that is followed by another part that is different, and it's either 4 bars long as well, or sometimes 8 bars, like in this case. There are also pieces or chorals that are in A apostrophe B form, I guess. It's called A apostrophe in English. That's what it's called in Germany. Basically A, then an slightly altered A part, and then a B part. So yeah, that's what usually is played in, that we play in churches over here. We are evangelic, in case you're curious about that, or we are an evangelic organization. So yeah, and what I'm actually gonna do is do this in notation form. Oh, okay. I hope you can read notation. If not, it's not that bad either, I guess. I'm gonna show you the piano roll versions of this as well. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to have this part be a reminiscent of a Bach Chorale. So I believe a choral is form of sacred music. Usually, or back then, originally it was only one voice. It was all sung unisono or in unison. But later on, it was transformed in the evangelic church into like a piece that follows a cantus firmus and includes multiple voices, usually 4 though. And the cantus firmus, you maybe seen like a C dot F dot somewhere in sheets, especially if you encountered church music or sacred music. It's usually a melody that used to be a Gregorianic choral melody, oftentimes, that has been arranged for multiple voices or in a bigger work. So they just borrowed that melody from back then. And cantus firmus or C.F. C.F. is the signifies the melody, like where it is, or which voice is currently playing that melody. What I'm gonna do is, like I said, I'm going to arrange this in a Bach choral way. So this might be interesting if you're either planning to study music or are already studying music. At least over here, it's oftentimes part of a entrance exam that you have to, well, not always do it in the style of Bach, but you do at least have to arrange a piece for 4 voices. You either have the bass melody, and then they oftentimes write like the functions below that, like the tonic, dominant, and so on. Or you have the melody, and you may have to figure out the functions by yourself. So what Bach did usually was having like perfect intervals, like perfect, usually only not the perfect fourth, but the perfect fifth, or the unison, or the perfect octave, be in the bass at the beginning and at the end of phrases. And yeah, he usually started with the bass. The sopranos here actually is part of that line over here, not this one. Let's see, what you usually want to do is usually have the functions drafted up first. So what this piece is, or the scale that this piece follows so far, is G Dorian. I chose G Dorian for simplicity's sake, and since it was more common back then than other types of Dorian. D Dorian means that it doesn't have, it's like a D minor scale, just instead of the B flat, you have a B natural. As you can see, let's see, I have somewhere, oh yeah, there, right, that's a B natural. So the bass root note is D, but you don't have any B's here in front. It does transition into or modulate into another scale a bit down the line, but we'll focus on this first part. So this is the A part, and this is the second E part. A, not E. So let's see, it's in D Dorian, D is the root key. What you usually start out with is noting the functions. So which functions you want everything to have. This isn't a polyphonic piece, but a homophonic piece, meaning that everything's gonna follow the same rhythmic pattern as the main melody. At the beginning, you usually want to start with the main key or main tonic. In this case, D minor, since it's the D Dorian scale. I'll have to actually write that down in this case, since you can't really write here on this. But I'm gonna like blend in the letters, which I've of the functions that I've used. So first of all, we have the D, and well, you want to start with the tonic, as I said. So T, or well, I think I'm gonna go with actually chords instead of the functions. You just have to, I'm gonna do both. Let's do that. So with the tonic, which is G minor, then it transitions to the F. So you could have another tonic here, but usually you want to avoid having the same function right after each other. Sometimes you may have to use the tonic multiple times. But in this case, we can probably avoid it. So let's see, D, F. The F note is in, for example, F major, which is a chord in G Dorian, or it's a chord in D minor, which you don't want to use because we just use it, and it's in, well, H diminished, but you don't want to use diminished chords. You can see it as a G dominant 7th, I guess. G dominant 7 is G, H, G, F, which is the dominant 7th of C, well, don't think you want to use the G dominant 7, since it's otherwise gonna like lead into the C major key, which would make it seem like we aren't in D Dorian actually, which would like make the whole scale muddy a bit, since you can't be sure just from listening to it whether it's in D Dorian or in C major. So yeah, let's go with F major then. Next up we have the E. E is an E minor. Since it's D Dorian, we can have an A-B natural, so E, G, B natural. E is also in C major and in A minor or A major as well. Since it's D Dorian, we can use the A major chord to kind of lead over into G minor, the root note. But yeah, I don't think I want to use the dominant yet. Let's go with C major, which would be the dominant parallel. Then we have a C. Come with A minor, should be a minor dominant, but well, minor dominant aren't really a thing you would want to use, since it doesn't really have any real function. I guess oftentimes the minor dominant was non-existent actually. So we can use F major again. I guess it's the next best choice. So next up we have an A, which would be F major again, or we can go with A dominant. You can also go for the root again, the root sandstorm, which would be the tonic or G minor. Then next up we have the E. We can go for E minor, or even better we can go for C again, dominant parallel, which would lead nicely into F major, the tonic parallel, since C is the dominant to F in the F major scale or F minor scale. Next up you have an A B natural, so it would make sense to use a G major chord here to kind of give it that. I really like the G major chord in Dorian, D Dorian. It kind of really makes the whole scale Dorian for me. So we're gonna go with G major, which is the major subdominant. I guess G major leads nicely into C major, G major into C major, since it's the dominant of C major as well. Well, we can use the G major again as the subdominant into the dominant, or we can use tonic into dominant. Guess I'd have to try it out, which one sounds better. So we can use either subdominant or tonic into dominant. I really want to have a dominant on the E, a major dominant, so the A major chord in D Dorian. Let's see if what we have written up actually sounds good. Yeah, I don't like how it transitions back into F over here. Guess I can go more modern and not avoid the minor dominant. Although I'm actually not sure if it's really that bad in Dorian instead of Aeolian. In Aeolian, you usually want to avoid the minor dominant, definitely. Aeolian is the like normal, the normal minor scale. Then we had its transition into F major. I don't really like that. So transition into E minor instead of C. Doesn't really sound that great. So yeah, I guess screw what was typical. We'll go for the better sound. So instead of F major, we're gonna use the minor dominant, which is A minor. Yeah, I think subdominant to dominant works really well. So it's G major into A major. I don't like the transition back into the tonic, like takes all the tension out of this part. Since the tonic is like the ultimate tension reliever, I guess you could say, or non-tension chord. Okay, let's actually go with F major, which is the tonic parallel, to C major, into A minor again. So we have the chords written down now. Now we just need to add them. So for the bass, we're gonna start with the D minor chord. So yes, let's add an A D, since the D is the perfect octave, which like I said, Bach liked to start with perfect unison or octaves or perfect fifths at the beginning and ending of phrases. And I guess a phrase in this case would be the part, like the beginning would be of the A part, and the ending of the A part, and the beginning and ending of the second A part, and then the beginning and ending of the B part. Those would be pretty much phrases. Although you could see this as an ending of a phrase as well, because there's a note that's held rather long, functioning as a ending point. So yeah, let's start with the A part though. Since it's D minor, let's go with a D. It would make the most sense. We have a perfect octave here, and it establishes the main key, with it being in the bass. The next up we have the F. So what you did on between the ending and ending of phrases was actually using notes in the bass that were a third or a sixth away from the melody notes. So in this case we have an F, and a third away from the F in the F major chord would be the A. We can't use the D, which is also a third away, because the chord we chose is the F major chord, which doesn't have a D. It only has an A. So we're gonna transition into an A, and you usually wanna have like counter movement. So if this goes up, if you can, you wanna go down in the bass. So next up we have the C major chord. So this is an E, so we can either choose the C or the G for the bass. So we can go up to the C, go down to the G. Well, I guess since we want to have counter movement, how about going to the C? Not the D though. No. Yes, okay. Next up the A minor chord. So this is an A, so we will have to use a C again. Guess in this case. Wait, it's the C. So we can use the A or the E. Well, counter movement for the win. Tonica parallel is the F. So go to the F, which is a third away from the A. Next up the C major chord. So you can use the C or the G. Let's go down. don't want to have a C sharp though. There we go. And it has to be a half note long. No. No. No, please stop. Okay, I guess what we're gonna do is this. So yeah, the note function of this is, well, not that great. I'm gonna fix this up in the piano roll editor. Okay, so this C is gonna be held. Gonna have counter movements. One thing you have to make sure is that you can't jump too far off the bass. So you can't have jumps that are a seventh big, since this would be hard to sing or play. You can have an octave jump though. Now the thing that I'm unsure about is the singers themselves. You definitely don't want to have a tritone, since this is really hard to sing, that I remember. A tritone jump, I mean. But now the thing is, like, usually don't want to have too much movement in the voices. But then again, the bass jumps around quite a bit in this case. Like D to the A, just a fourth jump. Then F to the C, which is another fourth jump. Although you could go to the G, so it'd be better to stay on the C, go up to the G. That's the question. I'm playing in the brass corps, so I'm not too familiar with singers, what they usually prefer. This would be easy for a brass player, but not sure about singers. But we're gonna just judge by listening to it, I guess. But since this is a bit more straightforward, I'm gonna just ignore the counter movement thing and go with the G here, since, well, it's definitely better to have just a second step instead of a fourth jump here. Okay, then the next chord is the A minor chord. This is in A, so we definitely want to have a C. So in this case we have to jump down anyway. It's the fifth jump. Should be okay. Next up is the G. So well, guess we'll jump up to the G. Guess it's not much of a counter movement, but if I go up to the C over here, I mean, if I do choose to go up, yeah, I might want to go up to the C instead of down. But then again, there's not much room for the tenor. Let's just stick with this. Okay, next up is the C major chord. So C, E would be the next one, which is a third away from the C, then G. In this case, the H is actually the one that's further away from it. Then you have the A major chord here, and since it's the end of the phrase, you want to have a perfect fifth, unison, or perfect octave. So what I'm gonna do in this case is the perfect fifth with an A, which is also the root notes of the A major chord. So that works out pretty nicely. Okay, with that we have the bass. Let me just fix up the things. Oh, G held here. Oh, for some reason it became a G. Yeah, this one became a G sharp as well for some reason. Okay. I guess this movement, it's not counter movement, it doesn't really sound that nice. Next best option would be the C. Well, the C again. It was the place where I couldn't decide if I wanted to have the G or the C. See how it sounds with the C. Yeah, it's better, definitely better. So now that we are done with the bass, it's time to continue working on the middle voices. So what you want to do is fill out the chords, and usually want to have as little movement as possible. That's the first rule. Then on top of that, you definitely have to avoid parallel fifths or octaves or unisons, meaning that two voices can't move in the same direction if they are a fifth or apart or a unison or an octave, since it's, well, doesn't sound that great. Those are the rules, or those were the rules. Back in the Middle Ages, it was actually the other way around. They only used parallel fifths and fourths. I guess parallel fourths are okay in this case as well, but parallel fifths and octaves not so much. And you, well, of course, don't want to have a tritone jump, since it's hard to sing. Okay, let's start with the G minor chord. So usually don't want to like double the third note of the chord. In the case of G minor, the third note would be F. Doubling the fifth note is okay. You can never double the third notes on the dominant, which is A major in this case. Doubling the third is okay, but it would be better to not do that. Okay, so let's start with the beginning. For the altos, I'm gonna go with A. Actually, I messed up with the keys here. This has to be a normal one, but I guess I'm gonna stick with the bass for now. Usually you have a G clef with lowered octave, but I mean I'm using this for the not to make sheets, although maybe I'll make sheets of this in the future, but for now I'm going to stick with the usual stuff. If I'm gonna make sheets, I'm gonna do it in Muse course, since Cubase's notation function is pretty poor. Set an A. No, A. Please. No, don't do this to me. Okay, thanks. And an F. For the G minor chord, we need G, F, and A. We have two Ds. Then we have an A here, and we're gonna have an F here. There we go. Now we have a D minor chord. Next up we have an F major chord. So usually you don't wanna move the notes. I guess in this case you would have to let the A and the F stay, but then you wouldn't have a C, which is essential for the, well, not essential, but which you usually want to have in the F major chord. You don't want to skip on any of the notes from the chords. So the shortest way to the C would be for the altos, which is the C up here. You would want to have the the tenor play a C, you'd have to jump a fourth down. But, well, we don't have to do it in this case, fortunately. So we're gonna stick with an F. We have the root doubled. There's an F here, an F here. Then we have an A and a C here. Okay, so next up is the C major chord. So we have a C here already, so why not stick to it? So E, C, C. The only note that's missing is the G. So it's at the G. And we can't forget to check if there are any parallels. This is the third jump from an A to an E, a C. Those are fourths though, so we have parallel fourths here which aren't forbidden though. This one doesn't move at all. We have a second movement upwards in the tenor. Well, and none other. This one jumps a third. I have the feeling that I'm mispronouncing tenor. I get tenor. I guess tenor is the German pronunciation. Tenor. Tenor. Okay, let's go with tenor. Okay, so the tenor moves a second, and well, none of the others do. So let's see. The next chord is an A minor chord. Usually want to stick with the C in this case, since the C is in the A minor chord. There you have two C's. Which is the third. Well, we don't really want to have that. We have an E here, missing an A, which the tenor could transition into. Then we can have two C's, but nah, we're gonna jump down to the A to double the root. So it's a third jump down, which isn't a problem. So, well, we have third parallels here, which are allowed. And well, from my experience, the alto oftentimes is in third parallels to the sopranos. Though, as always, speaking from my experience in the brass corps, not a singer. So yeah, let's see. Then we have the F major chord. So I guess let's continue in third parallels. So we have two Fs, an A. We just need a C. So we can move a third up to the C in the tenor. There we go. That's a C. Okay, and next up we have a C major, chord. So C major. So we have a C and an E. We can leave the C here, guess to double it. We can move up to the G. Okay, there we go. And next up is the A minor chord. So the C is in A minor as well, but we would double the C in this case. So let's not double the third, even though it wouldn't be such a terrible thing. I guess if we didn't have another choice, we could double the third, but we do. So let's see, we have an A, C, and an E is missing. So we can either step up to the A to have this jump up to the E, or we can have this jump down to the E and this jump down to the A. But that wouldn't work. I'm gonna show you why. Let's set the notes first. I'm gonna show you why we can't do this. Because we'll have fifth parallels here. It's a perfect fifth between C and G, and a perfect fifth between A and E. They're going or moving into the same direction while maintaining the same ratio or the same interval. And that interval is a perfect fifth, which is forbidden. So can't do that. Instead, we are going to go up to the A here, and we will have to jump to the E, even though not a fan of that. Come on, give me that E. So we have an C, E, A. Okay, next up we have the G major chord. We can go down to the G, in this case, to double the root of this chord. And we can go to the G, down to the G, which is missing. It wouldn't be a parallel because E to the A is a perfect fourth, and G to the G is a perfect fourth. So it is allowed. Come on. Okay. Next up is the C major chord. Okay. Here's an E, we have a C, we need a G, which we have here. So the alto doesn't have to move, and we can go down to the C. There's no parallels, so it's all good. And then we have the G major chord again. So we have an H in the bass. This can stay on the G again, so the altos don't have to do that much. Pretty much always on the G. So we only need a D, but we can't really, because it would mean we would have parallels here. C to the D, that would be a parallel. We can't jump down to the D, of course, because it would be way too far. So I guess we'll have to use an emergency solution, which is jumping down a fourth in the altos, which isn't ideal at all, but it's still better than not having the D at all or having parallel octaves. But now we're missing the G in the G here. I guess theoretically we can actually see this like subdominant into dominant as the cadence, I guess. It's a half cadence or imperfect cadence. So in this case we can actually already use parallels here. Let's see. Can't go G, A. That would be parallel fifths. Go into a D, maybe. D and then jump down to an A. So it would be a perfect octave, or actually a bit bigger than an octave. It's 2 octaves, but you can just see it as 1 octave for simplicity's sake. So we can have a D here. Let's get rid of that. D into the A. So then we can have the G here and go into an H in the tenor. And these are 6 parallels, so it's not a problem at all. And the last note is a, let's see, A major. So we have an A and E. We are missing a C sharp. I guess the tenor can take that position. No, please. Give me a C sharp. There we go. And we can double the A. Or if we wanted, we can keep the G as a dominant 7th chord. If I can hit the G. So that would be the thing. Oh yeah, what I forgot to mention. If the voices aren't moving, like for example in this case, like these are fifths. These are fifths as well, but it isn't forbidden to just leave them like that because they aren't moving. If it's a parallel fifth or parallel octave or unison, but they don't move, then you can just keep it because only the movement in parallel fifths or parallel octaves or in unison is forbidden. No movement at all in parallels isn't a big deal at all. Okay, so that's the thing on paper, but you need to see how it actually sounds, because that's the most important part. Okay, let's fix these up. So yeah, the notation program of including Cubase isn't good at all, as you can see. Okay, everything's well with the sopranos. Well, those are wrong. So the tenor is a bit strong here. I'm thinking of doubling the E. That's not as strong. I guess this is because of the sample itself. That's because of the arrangement. Thing is, we have doubled the A, which is the third note, which isn't ideal at all, but guess it's the next best thing. Could have jumped down to the G, but then the whole rest of the arrangement of the tenor would have been weird and different. So the tenor doesn't have any weird jumps. I guess the biggest jump of the bass is the fifth. So we have the A part covered. Next up is the B part. And since you already know how well I'm doing this, how I showed off with the rather lengthy tutorial, I guess you can say, of the A part, I'm going to do the B part without commenting on it. It's probably just going to be like a sped up portion of this video. I forgot to mention, the meh parts here, like in the meh folder, are the old altos and sopranos, which were the woman A legatos of the Hollywood core. But I chose the Freya samples. It sounds way better, especially the legatos. They're like awesome. But like compared to the Hollywood cores, it doesn't have a good word builder. And it doesn't have any male voices, unfortunately, which is really sad, since it would have been really cool to use to have like male voices in the same quality. Oh, what's actually interesting here, I forgot to mention, is that it's actually like, or I did mention that it is modulating a bit here. Like for example, there's an F sharp, and it pretty much ends on an B natural major chord, transitions into an E major chord. So this is gonna be a bit more interesting. Maybe I'm gonna do a bit commenting on it after all. At least at the choice of the chords. I think I could transition into an A Dorian scale pretty much. Maybe I'm actually gonna have a held chord here, like augmentating the harmonic rhythm, like having the G major 7 chord. Yeah, I may for the last part here. I have to think about it. Okay, for now let's take care of this. I'll start with an A minor chord, then transition to C, which could be a C major. We're gonna have a lot of medians this way. Medians are like third notes relationships, I guess you could say. It's a bit hard to describe in English. It's pretty much chords that are related by being a third away from each other. So what I was thinking of doing is like A minor, C major, E minor. But I'm not sure if it really works that well. Let's go with A minor, F major, maybe, E minor, into G major, since we have the H here, B flat, I mean, B natural, sorry. You can see the GSA passing notes. Ooh. Oh, that's nice. Okay. So what would be really cool here is an A dominant 7th that transitions into the D dominant 7. The A major chord is the dominant to the D major chord, meaning that it transitions really nicely into the D major chord, or that it wants to go into the D major chord. And the G here can be seen as the 7th of the dominant 7th. There we go. Okay. So let's go with A dominant 7th pretty much because of the G. Then D dominant 7th, G, maybe A, then a D again, and then the let's go with D 7/9. Without root. So what you can have to as well is a dominant 7th or dominant 7th 9 chord without root, since it would be like B natural, D, F in C major. It's missing the root, which is G, but it still functions like the G dominant 7th chord, even if it doesn't have the root. So yeah, we can do that. The ninth is this note here, the E. So the chord all in all would be G, F sharp, A, C, E. And then I wanted to have the H major. Okay. Actually, screw the missing root. Let's go with G9. Because thing is, in the bass you usually wanna transition the leading tone or leading note into the root. Otherwise you're gonna break a rule. So this is what I did here. Since A dominant 7th is pretty much the dominant to G major, which is the chord here. You have to transition the C sharp into the D. You don't always have to do this for the tenor or the altos, but for the other voices like the soprano and the bass you have to. So I guess it is better to transition the C sharp into the D in this case, since it's again like the A major into the G major. Since the A major is the dominant to the D major here. It's a secondary dominant, if you know the term. And that's pretty much a dominant that shouldn't be there, but serves the purpose to transition into the note it's the dominant to. Like, let's say we have a C major scale. Then all of a sudden we get like somewhere in the middle of the piece a G dominant 7 chord. The D dominant 7th chord transitions to the G major. Yeah, the G major chord, since it's the 5th. The chord on the 5th note upwards from the root. This would be intermediary dominant. And that's the F sharp. Actually show it to you in piano roll. The F sharp, which isn't in C major, so it's not really a chord that you would expect to appear, but it does anyway. Transition into G major, which can then transition back into the tonic C major. So the A major is pretty much an intermediary dominant here. Don't really have anything against not starting on the not having any jumps here. But I guess we can still try to not have any jumps between this and this passage. Doesn't really matter much, I believe, because it's like a new part and there's a bigger pause here, but oh well. I'm going to double the 5th note here on the F major chord, since I don't want it to jump all the way down to the F. So I'm gonna use another not so nice solution here. We can't go up to the E and up to the A here, since it would be quint parallels otherwise. So I'm jumping down to the E and up to the A here, which is well, quint jump, which is pretty bad, but or not that great at least. I guess what we could do also is just well, ignore the A and just double the E, for example. Maybe that's a better choice actually. The root disappears on this 8th, but well, it's better than having such a big jump, and you can see the AG here as part of this whole chord. You can kind of still feel the A being played. I'm going to cheat a bit and make an A dominant 7th chord here, since I don't really want to jump all the way to the A. If you have the same thing here as here, where I'd have to go up to the E and go down to the E over here, but then well, it's actually not that bad. We can do that. We can't really go up to the E and up to the A over here. The problem is that, well, we would have perfect parallel fifths here. So we can do that. In case you're wondering why I'm always mixing up H and B, it's called H over here, and B flat is called B over here. So it's kind of confusing, since B natural isn't the same as B over here in Germany. So how about instead of having the 5th, you're gonna have the C. So it's let's see, it's a G dominant 7th 9 chord for the 5th, but the 5th isn't really that important. The important part of a dominant chord is the 3rd note and the 7th. And I guess in the case if you wanna have a 7th 9th chord, of course also the 9th, which is the E here. So let's see, no parallels, and no parallels here as well. Okay, very good. So we skipped the 5th instead of the 7th in this case. Okay, next up I'll have to fix all the weird stuff that Cubase notations did. Since the chord right before this was the H major chord, which is the intermediate dominant to the E minor chord, you're gonna have this next chord be an E minor chord and an F major chord. I already tried this part out to see if it actually works. Yep, the F major chord is pretty good here. It's a really cool feel to it, in my opinion. So back to the E minor chord. Okay, so the chord progression is E minor, F major, E minor, G minor, C major, G major, C major, A minor, G major, A major, G minor. So the C sharp is pretty important to lead back into the root key of D minor, or D Dorian in this case. Okay, so the problem here is that you can't really double these. I guess you can double the H, but it's the third note of the G major chord, so it's definitely not ideal, and you definitely can't double the leading tone, which is the C sharp here. You can't really have a fifth, since the C sharp and the B are both the third tone. So yeah, I guess you have to have thirds here. In this case, G, A, and then D, the main note. You have a parallel octave here again. Since this is a new part, I'm gonna disregard the jump, the fourth jump here, since it's not really such a big deal, since there's a big break in between. So I'm not too sure about this part, if the jumps are really okay. Especially since it starts out this deep. Might even be easier to have it like this. Hey, it sounds pretty good. Oh, I almost forgot. Oh, the best part of this all. Okay. So thing is, if you have any parts where there are any parts that are like a third away from each other, you want to connect them. So let's see, for example here, there are thirds here. So what you're gonna do is take this and make it an AH. AH. There we go. And then the same the way down. Okay, so we don't have to do that for the melody since the melody is set, but we need to do that for all the other voices. the D here, though. Kind of disappeared because I accidentally deleted it. So yeah. It's the same for this part. So you just have to copy paste it. And there are of course errors once again. Not gonna do it for this. Though I could for the tenor. But I'm not sure. Nah, I'm not gonna. One thing that you have to keep in mind in this case is that we have an F sharp here. So this has to be an F sharp as well. Not a G sharp though. So otherwise it's gonna clash with the rest of the harmonic. There we go. Then usually you want to have a ritardando here. So it starts off at 95. Then it drops down. Maybe 80 or so. Maybe more. Yeah, there we go. Let's listen to the whole piece now. Yep, there we go. Okay, that's a good start. Next up is gonna be something more counterpoint-esque. Not sure if this is gonna be the beginning actually or the middle part. And I'll have to add a few or a bit more modulation, since it sounds a bit plain currently. Let's see what I'll be able to come up with. Alright, here we are again. As I promised, I think. Not sure if I mentioned that, but I've added modulation. So yeah, it sounds a bit more realistic now. I'm still going to have to do a bit of fine-tuning, but I think it's way better now, especially regarding the dynamics. Since, like, for example, as you can see, this is pretty middle, I guess you could call this mezzo forte or maybe even forte. This part's way quieter, especially during these parts. And then we have this part that's contrasting to the previous part, which is way more, which is, well, forte over here, forte or fortissimo, and then descends slowly. I've cleaned it up a bit too. Like for example, I've cut the very beginning of the soprano voice because it didn't fade in as well, so I had to just make it come in an eighth, maybe later. Yeah, nah, a 16th later. And there was, I think in the tenor, there was like a C sharp instead of a C, but that's all fixed now. So yeah, let's listen to the track. And there we go. Okay, I've got the bit of the last part here in the sopranos as well, since it didn't fade out as well. As you can see, I've already prepared the next part, which is gonna be counterpoint. Oh yeah, and regarding the bass here, let's see, where is it? Just like a, yeah, this is the bass. There was one part where I had that jump which I wasn't sure about. Ah, there it is. Yeah, the fourth. No, here you go. E-H-E. E-B-E. So the thing is that I believe, as far as I've gathered, jump of a fifth is definitely okay, so jumping up to the E would be alright here. Leave a jump of a small or minor sixth is good as well, as long as it's upwards. I guess the difficult part here is that the E is pretty much at the bottom of the bass's like range, so it might be a bit hard to play it like twice in a row, like E, jumping up to the H and then having to jump back to the E again. If it's a really good bass, that won't be such a problem, but oh well. I think I'll leave it like this for now, and if I ever have to actually, if I ever have to play this with a real quartet, I'll probably have to just put the E up here an octave. Should be just as good, probably. Yeah, I give a teaser of the next part, which is gonna be counterpoint. I'd like to actually cut this off and do the counterpoint in the next part, since this video is already really long, because I went through the rules by which you have to abide to write a Bach Chorale. So yeah, the counterpoint is gonna take even longer probably, because the rules are even more complicated, or there's more stuff that you have to build up of. But yeah, I want you to actually understand what I'm doing, so that's why I've planned to make this a bit of a tutorial. So now you know how to write a Bach chorale, Bach style chorale, and I'll see you in the next video, where we are gonna discuss counterpoint. See ya.